times get tough, states get taxing. New York is now considering hiking taxes on everything from soft drinks to luxury goods to close what is amounting to a stunning $15 billion budget gap. David Sirota says there has got to be a better way. Forget about nickel and diming average folks for chump change. The syndicated columnist, best-selling author, says instead, hit the very rich for much more serious change. What are you saying, David?
Well, what I'm saying is that economists will tell you that we have to have a choice here. You can either cut spending or you can raise taxes. And most economists will tell you that cutting spending would undermine the sort of stimulative effect of any economic stimulus that states or the federal government is trying to pass. Cutting spending reduces a stimulative program from the government.
So how does raising taxes on anyone get you that stimulus?
Well, you've got to pay for keeping government programs, infrastructure spending, investment. You've got to pay for that. So you have to choose what kinds of tax moves you're going to make. And I think that the clearest way, the most stable way to raise taxes is on the very wealthy, because you know the money is there. A lot of that money lays idle, isn't in the economy. If you get some of the money from the very wealthy and use it to continue or increase infrastructure investments and state spending.
There are fewer wealthy people, right? I mean, they're all losing their jobs these days. So we're left with maybe Hannity, O'Reilly, and a couple of their brokers. So that's it. My point is, how does increasing taxes on them come remotely close to narrowing what is likely to be a $1.5 trillion deficit?
Well, Neil, there's a huge amount of wealth that the richest 5% of this economy in this country has.
All right, fine. But is it enough to close a $1.5 trillion gap? Is it enough to pay for all the spending we're likely to see?
It's not clear that it's completely enough, but it can be part of the solution. No, it is clear that it's
not remotely enough.
It can be part of the solution. I think there's a case to be made that if you made our tax rates back to the Clinton era, where the highest income earners were paying a lot more, that could help close a budget deficit.
But David, we were doing that. We were doing that in the face of an economy that was coming out of a downdraft. Now we're getting deeper into one. So I will let you say, you could be compounding the problems. When even folks like Larry Summers, who was with me not too long ago, say he agrees with then candidate Obama that we should raise taxes on the upper income, he wouldn't do it in an environment like this. So what do you say to that?
Well, but when we're talking about states cannot go into deficit. So the question is, again, what kind of tax increases are you going to enact to avoid cutting spending? Cutting spending would hurt the economy. Cutting spending is not the way to help the economy. So you have to ask at a state level, what kinds of taxes are you going to raise? And I would submit to you that you don't want to raise taxes on the working class, on people who are going to spend the money the fastest, who need it the most.
Why is cutting spending off the table? I mean, when we know there's a great deal of waste and abuse, and I know we look at this as states at the federal level, that they can't get their handle on this, and that we figure, all right, well, the heck with spending cuts, we'll go ahead with tax increases. So every slowdown, we do the same thing, almost a Pavlovian response. We start hiking user fees and taxes and tolls. We start considering millionaire taxes, upper income taxes. And at best, it's a short-term panacea that makes a big government ever bigger.
Well, look, I don't think anybody's saying that at the state level that spending cuts to try to trim the waste out of government is off the table. What I'm saying, though, is that
why is it always off the table, though? It always seems to be taken off the table.
It's never off the table.
In favor of feeding the beast more. You can't figure out the beast. You know the beast wastes money, but you know you can't take stuff away from the beast, so you give the beast more to be even beastlier, right?
Because you don't want to cut spending at a time of economic recession. You want a counter-cyclical force. You want spending to counter the downward cycle, and that's what the government does. That's what investing in infrastructure is.
All right, so why would you counter that stimulative effect if you argue that spending is going to be stimulative, short-term, and invariably it is, by hiking taxes on any group of people?
Because states can't go into deficit. States need to find that money. So in other words, if you cut spending at the state level, the minute Barack Obama signs a federal stimulus, it will undermine it. You'll simply be back in the same place that you are. You've got to do everything you can to get as much money into circulation as possible.
David, my only point is, and I'd love to have you back on this, my only point is that when you raise taxes on any group, you don't get away from the fact that you're still in a pickle. And this government is facing a $1.5 trillion budget deficit pickle. So even if you raise tax on the top 5%, and even if you got the generous estimates of maybe $400 billion doing that, which is debatable, you're still 1.1 trillion shy of where you have to be. So what's stimulating about that?
But I agree with you. It's a big problem, Neil. But what I'm saying is that increasing taxes on the wealthy has to be part of the solution. And increasing taxes and the burden on the middle class cannot be part of the solution.
All right. David, always good having you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.